Welcome to a brand new episode of the Bold Take Podcast. I'm Austin Hill. With me, as always, is Austin Wader, and we are back talking college football action from the last few games of bowl season and the quarterfinals of the college football playoff. We got a lot of action to talk about. An exciting week, certainly. But let's start in the Music City Bowl in Nashville, Nissan Stadium. Tennessee took on Illinois in a game where the Fighting Illini won 30-28. And this was kind of a fun game to watch for those of us that tuned in. Back and forth action. Felt like Illinois was going to have a little bit of control in this game. And then the kind of late surge at the end by the Vols that was ultimately snuffed out by the Illini. But this was a good back and forth game. And as a Luke Altmaier fan, this is a great game to kind of close out his college career at Illinois. Just kind of the perfect Luke Altmaier game, if you will.
Yeah, perfect in the way, efficient passing wise, going out there, nice completions there and that. No, this was a great game to watch. Like I said, Illinois, I think, was up 10 points entering the fourth quarter, something like that. And then Tennessee scores quickly. Illinois gets a field goal. And then, bang, kickoff return by Tennessee for the touchdown. And I was like, all right, let me sit back. And then Illinois did a great job controlling the clock, that 10 plus play drive, getting into field goal range, getting a chip shot win. The consistency, and that's why I said whenever Illinois hired him, Bielema was going to succeed at Illinois. He's just a Big Ten football coach. He knows what it's going to take to get done, have success in the Big Ten. And, we've seen it here. In Tennessee, it's a weird thing because this was a year I think me and you both would agree was kind of a rebuilding year for them.
Yeah.
And you look at their schedule, they did not beat a single team with a winning record this year. So that kind of tells the story on that about, how good they truly were this year. So rough year for them, but good end for for Illinois. And like I said, Luke Altmaier, great finish. Be interesting to see, maybe what chances he gets NFL. Obviously some teams now that the regular season's over for the NFL might be looking ahead to draft, and he could be a fun third or fourth round, maybe fifth round pick at quarterback. I'm not sure, but great way to end the year for Illinois.
Yeah, I agree. And we kind of saw the defense that we expected at the beginning of the year that we kind of saw flashes of throughout the year. We saw that in this game. Really limited Joey Aguilar. He only threw 4 incompletions, but held him to 120 yards, which kind of isn't the status quo for
Mm-hmm.
14 completions. Uh, for this Tennessee offense, usually they go out and get those big type of plays in the passing game. But Bishop had a great game, 93 yards, 2 touchdowns. Again, this was just an awesome battle and kind of a fun game to tune in and watch. But then we had an even more
Yes.
phenomenal game that followed this up. USC clashing with TCU in the Alamo Bowl. Never forget, in San Antonio, Texas. Um, and this was an awesome clash. This game ended up going in OT. And obviously, the big question in this game for TCU was what was the quarterback position going to look like? Josh Hoover's out. He's fielding offers right now at other universities
Mm-hmm.
in the transfer portal. And so it was up to TCU to kind of figure it out how they were going to get the job done. And look, I'll say it. Ken Seals really stepped up and played a phenomenal game. I know he had the 1 interception, 29 for 40, though. He's above 500, or, above 50% completion percentage. And when you compare that to Mavia with his 2 interceptions and 18 for 19 completion percentage, kind of won this duel. But yeah, this was an awesome kind of back and forth, and it was also a comeback for TCU. The defense got a little bit more stingy
Mm-hmm.
in this game because they were down. Well, I guess actually they were up at halftime, but uh, just a fight all the way till the end, and kind of the awesome walk-off touchdown at the end of this game after the big sack right before that.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah, there was a sack. I think it was like freaking 3rd and 20 from the USC 35. So I'm thinking, and I'm sure you were thinking too, was all right, just do a play, get back into field goal range, kick the field goal, we'll go to double overtime. They basically did that with the play call, which was just a simple little screen pass. Little did we know that USC decided to revert back to the Alex Grinch level defensive tackling form days on that play, with them being able to tiptoe down the sideline for the touchdown. But This is what bowl season's about. Two really good teams going head to head. Like I said, it was a great first half back and forth. TCU was up by one, and it felt like USC kind of pulled away with a field goal. And with like 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter to go up by 10, it kind of felt like, all right, USC's pulled away. They got the win. But then you got the TCU touchdown, 3-and-out for USC. You get the field goal, and then we go into overtime, and that's where it happened. So again, great year for TCU. Sonny Dykes, after the national championship the first year, bit of a slow second year. You've seen the last 2 years them kind of get back to that consistency. We've seen at TCU 7, 8, 9 wins consistently from TCU. We've seen that here, and it was phenomenal finish. Remember the Alamo? I remember this Alamo Bowl, as is every single one that TCU's in. I mean, we need to be reminded of the Oregon comeback in like 20,
Yeah.
freaking what year was that? I forget. It was 31-0 Oregon at halftime, and TCU comes all the way back with the backup quarterback in that one too. Ironically, I mean,
Yeah.
basically, if TCU's in the Alamo Bowl, you better just buckle up because it's going to be a thrilling game, pretty much.
Yeah, and like you touched on with Sonny Dykes, got this team constantly looking like a contender in the Big 12. And yeah, I think it's hats off the performance he's had. Like you said, that second year was a little bit of a step back after being in the national championship. But you know what? This is his third 9-win season at TCU. I think that says enough for itself. Um, but look, we'll talk about it a little bit more later, kind of the thoughts of it. But I think more and more with kind of some of the results we've seen in this college football playoff, we could be lingering towards an expansion to this college football playoff
Mm-hmm.
here in the near future. Again, touch on it a little bit later, but you know, being a contender like that in the Big 12 and hanging around those 9, 10 wins
Mm-hmm.
every year,
Yeah.
if this playoff does expand, it's going to have your name written all over it if you're TCU, at least a chance at a spot. Maybe one of the biggest games we've seen of bowl season here uh, outside of the college football playoff. Uh, Michigan clashes with Texas. And look, this was a big game. We talked about it. Bryce Underwood versus Arch Manning, two guys who we're going to have our eyes on, and two teams we're going to have our eyes on coming into next season. And we certainly got our money's worth from Arch Manning in this one. Bryce Underwood, not terrible, but the completion percentage was low, 3 interceptions. But we saw this Texas team just at its absolute peak in this game. Arch Manning, 21 for 35, 221 yards, 2 touchdowns, another 155 on the ground with 2 rushing touchdowns there. Clark added in another 105 rushing yards with a touchdown. This offense looked phenomenal. And again, it kind of what we both talked about. We both thought Texas would win this game, and this would kind of be the hype up for that. Maybe an Arch Manning Heisman case coming into next season. Texas looking like a contender, not just in the ACC, but in the country. And it's hard to not start to feel that hype after a full year starting from Arch Manning. He closes out his season with a no pushover at Michigan there. Closes out his season with a big, dominant statement win that shows what this Texas team could be about coming into next season.
I mean, it truly was a great game. This has kind of brought me back to like bowl seasons of past. You know, like a big time matchup, two ranked teams, everyone's playing. Let's just sit back and relax and watch it. And this was a great back and forth game for most of it. I mean, both teams were going up and down the field scoring. But some key turnovers in that second half truly were the difference. Bryce Underwood threw that interception in the red zone, and then he threw another one after Texas took the lead, and then Arch broke free for that 60-yard touchdown run. And, you know, I heard some people saying, and I thought it was interesting, some people were saying after this game, like, we know he said he plans to come back, but, like, have you seen this QB class? Like, and I was like, okay, that's a fair argument. But I think for Arch, I think the best thing will coming back for another year. I think that's ultimately what he'll end up doing. Um, it feels like we're the way people were talking in the preseason this year is again how it's going to be next year. But the difference, like you said, is we got a full year of Arch Manning finally playing as the full-time starter. We got the full year. 10-3 was a disappointment, obviously, given what people expected in the preseason. But a full year of Arch as starter. Now he comes back and has another full year of starting next year. Who knows what that could be? Absolutely, I'm intrigued. And the big thing for Bryce Underwood, again, let's remember the dude's a true freshman. The dude is 18 years old. It is not like he is a seasoned veteran, like every single freaking
Great.
starting college quarterback in college football is now that's like 25 years old. I mean, he's only like 18 years old. So the
Yeah.
guy's got some developing to do. So another year in this at Michigan. I'm very intrigued to see what he does in Jason Beck's offense that comes over. I'm very intrigued to see what they can do with him there. But another year there, gain some more confidence, continue to build, and then we'll see where he goes from there. But great win for Texas end of the year. Like I said, preseason expectations for Arch are going to be high, but this time it's justified.
Yeah, I agree. And we talk about the 1 year, the full year as a starter. But to me, it's not just a full year as a starter. It's a full year as a starter where we saw him take his licks at the beginning of the
Yeah.
season, and then he's grounded it back in, and he's played really, really good to close out this season. You talk about the last two games of the season for Arch Manning are a huge upset win over Texas A&M, and then a huge victory over a young, pretty much full Michigan team coming into this game. Another team we're, again, excited about what they could potentially do next season in the Big Ten and nationally as far as the college football playoff is potentially concerned. Um, so, yeah, I mean, this is a great way to close it out. And like we said, a little bit more justified as we start to look ahead to next season, where Arch Manning is going to be in the Heisman projections, where Texas is going to be in the national landscape of things. I think a number one ranking for Texas coming into next season would be way more justified next
Yes.
season than it was this season. But I think as a Texas fan, you've got a lot to be excited about with Arch Manning. And I'm, thinking about trying to find a way to get the tickets to the Arkansas Texas game just to see maybe how good one of the top teams in the country in the Texas Longhorns could be. Um, but then let's spin it to another ranked matchup we had in this game. Number 23, Iowa, taking on number 14, Vanderbilt in Tampa Bay. Uh, and this was a 34-27 victory for Iowa. Um, and, Pavia and the Commodores, they come up short in this one. No fault of Diego Pavia. Played a pretty good, pretty Diego Pavia-like game. No turnovers. But the big thing here is just such a slow start for
Hmm.
Vanderbilt. 14-3 at half. They outscore and win the second half, but only by 4 points. And again, that just wasn't enough to get the job done. A slow start, kind of a big win here for Iowa, as it seems like kind of turning the corner into a new era, starting with this season. Close it out with 9 wins, a bowl victory over a talented SEC opponent, and now this is an Iowa team that kind of started to trickle into those college football rankings at the end of the season, did have a chance coming into that USC game
Hmm.
to not only, be in the Big Ten championship, but be in the college football playoff. And now they give themselves a legitimate chance coming into the next season of what they might be able to do.
Yeah, number two things for Vanderbilt. Number one, I mean, I think we saw in this game how much Diego Pavia missed Eli Stowers in this game. Obviously, he didn't
Yes.
play for the NFL draft. That's something that helped. Number two, man, I tell you what, Iowa defense continues to be tough. They got after Diego Pavia's butt in this game. Sacked 5 times, was pressured the whole day. I swear, every single time I saw them drop back to pass, they were knocking him on the ground, even if he got the pass off. So it was a rough day for Diego. He took his licks in this one. He took his licks, and Iowa went out and handled business. And again, I think Kirk Ferentz just continues to be one of the most underrated all-time head coaches, like in all of college football. This is a guy, no matter what the circumstances with what the offense is, continues to find a way to get 8, 9, sometimes 10, shoot, sometimes 11 or 12 wins in a season. And the man continues to be just as bad as consistent as can be in this Big Ten. And I remember we all thought, hey, what are they going to be like in this new Big Ten? No Big Ten West to bail them out. Maybe this is where they'll get starts falling off. Here they go, getting another 9-win season. So impressive for them. Vanderbilt, look, you lost the game, but let's say what it is. This season was the beginning of potentially a new era for Vanderbilt football. So maybe that was Diego Pavia's final game. I would say yes, but who the frick knows about eligibility nowadays? I'm not even going to try to figure that out. But was another fun one. Congrats to Iowa finishing the year strong here.
Yeah, well, I'll say this much about Diego Pavia's eligibility. Like you said, we don't know anything can happen. but the reports were coming out about Trinidad Chambliss, and it's kind of trending
Yes.
towards nothing's official, but it's trending towards the NCAA is not going to give Chambliss another year. Which think about what Chambliss is doing right now in the college
Hmm.
football playoff. Maybe could see him rising on some people's boards. I don't
Steelers,
know if it'd be ahead.
Steelers, please. Steelers, please.
I don't know if it'd be ahead of guys like Dante Moore and Fernando Mendoza. But still, I think you're seeing playmaking at the highest level, athleticism, out the door.
Hmm.
Certainly be an exciting prospect. And you talk about a winner at D2, winner now here on the grandest stage of them all in the college football playoff. Uh, a guy who just doesn't turn the ball over, doesn't make a lot of mistakes. I think it'd be interesting. But if Trinidad Chambliss, who I think is appealing for just a fifth actual year and maybe a
Yeah.
sixth year if you count his redshirt year. Um, if he can't get that, then I
Yeah,
can't
then
imagine that
he's
you
done.
give Diego Pavia like a seventh season of college football. Not that I don't like Diego Pavia, I do, and another any excuse to see him come back and play college football, I'm not going to complain about. But I think kind of not giving Chambliss another opportunity to come back would be
Mm, yeah.
kind of a bad way to handle the situation. But then let's spin it to the Bowl Take podcast uh bowl game of the week, and that was a Liberty Bowl, Simmons Bank, Liberty Stadium in Memphis, Tennessee. And on site for this one, uh rainy, weathery affair. Absolutely stoked. Sitting 9 rows back from the Navy sideline. But this was a phenomenal game if you love triple option football.
Hmm.
It was a blast to get to see Navy up close and personal with the way they come to the line and set up, and then they completely alter where everybody is. Blake Horvath was just phenomenal. 9 for 15 passing the ball for over 100 yards and 2 passing touchdowns. He found a way to get it going in this game pretty much any way possible. And for Cincinnati, with a lot that comes into next season, thinking about trying to be a contender in the Big 12. And, kind of until right at the very end, they were in this Big 12 title picture and they just kind of stubbed their toes. They controlled their own destiny.
Yeah.
And they stubbed their toe and kind of fell flat on their face and kind of led into this slide. Sorsby obviously into the transfer portal and left. And what I saw in this game was a lot of talent from this team, but at the quarterback position, I was concerned with the quarterbacks on roster, and it's nothing against Lichtenberg and Jones, but Lichtenberg, he does have a lot of mobility to him. He
No.
held onto the ball for way too long in this game when he was on the field. He got sacked a bunch. And then when he tries to fire it out and quick, he's throwing it right into a linebacker's hand for an easy pick six that snuffed this any hope for this team out. And then Jones, 2 for 5 for 19 yards. I was concerned that he had some kind of right arm injury and he actually couldn't throw the football
Mm.
because every play was a QB draw when Jones was on the field, minus the 5 times he actually threw the ball in this game. Uh, he just dropped back and then tried to run immediately. It was interesting to see. Obviously, this is a very small sample size for these two guys, but a lot of work to be done for Cincinnati if they want to try and capitalize on the highs of this past season. But for Navy, a program record, ties last year's 11 wins, and to close it out in such dominant fashion. Look, you can talk about your Tulane losing to Ole Miss or James Madison losing to Oregon. How about Big 12 Cincinnati getting absolutely pummeled by American Navy in this game? It looked like a safety hazard out there for the Cincinnati.
Very nice touch there, sir. Very nice. Very nice touch. Yeah, this year feels weird for Cincinnati because you look at the way they started the year. They started the year 7-1, and they took a 5-game slide to end the year. So it makes it look like you're like, man, all that hoopla for a 7-6 team. When it really is like, no, they were a 7-1 team entering November, and November just kicked their butt. November just destroyed them. And so yeah, Navy went out a winner. Man, congrats! I'm happy for Blake Horvath to go out a winner here. One of, like you said, he's maybe not up there as Keenan Reynolds, but as far as you enjoying it, he's right up there with him.
Yes.
And let's give credit to the head coach Brian Newberry there at Navy. You remember they had the coaching change that was a bit of a shocker like 2 years ago with a guy who had been winning there, had a lot of success there. And we're like, I don't really know about this move. They have the 5-7 first year, but now back to back double digit win seasons for Navy. That's something I don't think me and you even thought could happen 5 years ago. We never thought we'd see back to back years of Navy having double digit wins and dominating like they have. But here we are, and they handle business there. And for Cincinnati, I'm really not as worried because, again, they'll get more in the portal. They were down to like three running backs on the roster, and I saw one of them got injured. And they were like, they were only using two running backs for the entire second half. I was like, oh, those poor guys are just going to be
Yeah.
beat up to death there. But great way for Navy to end it. 11 wins in the season. Hey, 10 wins last year, 11 this year, 12 next year. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But a great end to the year for Navy.
Yeah, it was an absolute treat to watch. And look, last thing I want to touch on from this game, obviously wearing my Navy hat that I got from the Livery Bowl. It has a little bit on the
Hey.
side. Don't ask me how much it cost. It was more than I'm proud to admit I spent on
Yeah.
it. They're really scalping you there, but they knew what they had with this Liberty Bowl patch on the side. Because I'm gonna say that much. I probably would have paid any amount of money to take this hat home. Uh, but the punting in this game was another huge difference. The way Navy was able
Yes.
to flip field position in this game, punter was completely unaffected by wind and rain, and the same thing could not be said for Cincinnati's punter. Had a
No.
lot of punts go to the sideline, had a lot of punts go way short. The only real good punt that Cincinnati's punter had was a bad punt that Navy let bounce, and it happened to just bounce for like 25 yards down the field. Uh, but yeah, this was a phenomenal game to watch. Look, if you have any care about triple option football at all, if it interests you at all, you've got to go out and you've got to see one of these games in person. You have a whole new appreciation for it. It's so much fun to watch when you're there. And again, when you see, maybe you think about it on the broadcast. I really don't. But when you see every play, they come to the line of scrimmage and then they make a huge adjustment and guys are moving all around, and it's all that pre-snap
Yep.
motion that they've
Yep.
got now. I love how modern the triple option looks now. They can run it from the shotgun. They still get into the flex bone and the wing bone and run it, but all that motion now to kind of, hey, look over here. It's a modern touch to what you would think would be a very outdated scheme. But get there next year. See a triple option game. That's my message to everybody for the 2026 college football season. Go out there and find a triple option football game and watch it, whether it's Army or Navy, Air Force, Harding. Go out there and watch a triple option football game because it is an absolute treat to see it done. And with all of those teams, including Harding, playing at a high level of football over
Yes.
the last few years, you're not just going to be in for a fun game to watch it, this kind of rare offense, but you're going to go out and see a good football game as well. Um,
Yeah, I mean,
but
hey, listen, if that's your New Year's resolution, I love that New Year's resolution. Yeah, your New Year's resolution, you have to go watch triple option football at least once somewhere. That is one
yeah,
dang good resolution if I've ever heard of one.
yeah, it was a blast. It was so much fun to sit there and see in person. I'm already kind of craving another Navy football game, and unfortunately, they don't play again for the rest of this part of the year. So just gonna have to wait and maybe check the schedule and see where they're gonna be at.
Yeah.
But let's get into college football playoff action now. And starting with the first game, Miami takes on Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. And this was a huge clash. And look, coming into this game, I was not in on Miami. I thought, it was a bad game. I would have been, look, and I'll just be
Yeah.
completely honest. No matter who would have won that game with the way it was played, I would not
Yep.
have been in on them regardless.
And that's fair.
Coming into this game, facing Ohio State and how good they've been this season, I was like, there's just no way. The offenses weren't super great. The defenses weren't super great in this game. I just expected Ohio State to find some momentum and get going in this game. but credit to the Miami defense, a
Mhm.
24-14 victory. And there was no doubt about it.
No.
Uh, Last week I dogged defense a little bit. I said, you held a team to low scoring, but it wasn't really any credit to your defense. A lot of missed field goals in this game, kind of an error on Marcel Reed's part. But in this game, they beat down Julian Sand. Look, still not the greatest performance from Carson Beck. But look, Ruben Bain and company have been a force to be reckoned with. They did not let Julian Sand get comfortable in this game, and it absolutely showed. Two interceptions, a shutout in the first half. Absolutely, hats off to the Miami Hurricanes. Now in the semifinal, one win away from playing the national championship in Miami.
Yeah, I was about to say getting that home field advantage in Miami, I'm sure would be great there. But looking at this matchup, I mean, I came into and I said on here specifically, if I had to lean quarterback, I'd probably lean Carson Beck. And you look at the matchup, it was Carson Beck, like I said, maybe not the most eye-gauging things when you look at the numbers, but what's the one thing he did that Julian Sayin didn't do? He didn't turn the football over. Carson Beck played efficient
True.
football in the game and took off running for some big scrambles whenever he needed to. That's something I'll give Carson Beck for. And Julian Sayin just he looked like any freshman quarterback would against going against that defense. He looked frantic as all get out. He looked scared out there in the pocket offensively, and I felt bad for him because he'd been such a fun story to end the year against Michigan. He was getting the confidence, but this game won that. I also said Miami defensive line versus Ohio State offensive line. I'm going to give the edge to Miami, and like you said, my gosh, what a dominating performance in this game! It was ridiculous from the Miami Hurricanes. They got after him. I mean, the sacks were just ridiculous in this game. College football playoff stats. Ruben Baines got 4 sacks. Mesidor, 3.5 sacks. Miami sacks by college football playoff game. 7 versus A&M, 5 against Ohio State. This defensive line is insane. And like I said, their weakness was secondary. I put that up, said it. There was a weakness, it was secondary. Guess what? When you're getting pressure as quick as they were, you don't got to worry about your secondary at all. You don't have to worry. And that's what happened in this game. Again, it really just came down in this game with these two defenses like, who can play complementary football the best? And in the end, that was Miami because they didn't turn the ball over. Really, it didn't really turn for me, and I'm sure you could probably agree with me on this. The moment I truly started believing, second quarter, bang, that pick six to go back the other way. That's true. And I was let me, okay, Miami, all right, come ready to play. And that was a play. What a play by Scott. I mean, he jumped that bubble screen so perfect and took it back for the touchdown. And Ohio State kicking, as funny as that is, comes back to haunt them once again. I had a chance to make it a one possession game going into half, and they missed the kick. And that was an important kick that would have made a one score game, giving them a chance. But then credit Miami, a big drive to run the clock out and seal this thing. Man, I tell you what, it was an incredible performance for Miami. And this is the most the U has been back in a long time. Dominating performance for them over Ohio State.
Yeah, agreed. But let's take it into the next day's performance in an 11 a.m. game. I thought this was going to be the best game
Me too.
of the college football playoff or of this round. Um, and certainly, while the first half was close, 6-0 at half, Texas Tech's defense was doing its job. Eventually, that offense led by Baron Morton just not being able to get any things done. Look, when you have these quick drives or these turnovers and these quick turnarounds, even the greatest defenses, look, are going to fall apart. And I'll say it again. I like Texas Tech. This is the best team money could buy, as they were called. Um, let's have a discussion here. 23-0 shutouts, a bigger point differential than James Madison
Yep.
had against the
Yep.
very same Oregon team in the first round in Autzen Stadium in Eugene, Oregon. So if there's a discourse to be had, again, was this a safety issue? Was this a hazard for Texas Tech? Should we be having a conversation? Should Texas Tech ever be allowed to play in the college football playoff again? Because their first time in and they get beat by Oregon worse than James Madison did. They have a worse showing on offense. And look, again, I don't want to dog Texas Tech. They've had a phenomenal season, and they deserve their flowers. They played Oregon close in the first half. It was just the offense that never
Mhm.
came alive. Obviously, the 0 points on the board shows that. And when the defense has to keep coming out there and the game gets later and later and later, and your offense just getting nothing going, that's what we saw in this game. The floodgates finally opened, and the Oregon Ducks were able to take over this game. And win it. I mean, Dante Moore, 234 yards, 26 for 33, no touchdowns, one interception. Leading rusher had 42 yards, though he did have two touchdowns.
Yeah.
But I mean, that right there shows you this defense held Oregon better than a lot of teams have this season. And Baron Morton just could not get this thing going. I hate to put so much pressure on Baron Morton, but a lot of the mistakes that were made in this game were on the back of Baron Morton. And a lot of that did come down to the talent on this Oregon defense, which, look, we talked about it a lot. And so I've decided that after this game, no longer will I make this an example of this defense and why this team is gonna lose. They grew up in this game. This defense, this whole team, young, inexperienced, a lot of guys that are sophomores, redshirt sophomores, hanging around on this team. They've had their struggles, they've had their issues. Even last week, they kind of had some issues defensively stopping this
Mhm.
team. But in this game against one of the premier offenses in college football. They allowed no points. They forced two interceptions. They really shut these guys down. This was a grow up, a learning experience that has got this team ready for a deep run this season and next season.
Yeah. My gosh, I was about to say you took the words right out of my mouth. For all the people who came in, it's like, is this Texas Tech defense really that good? I mean, was it just the Big 12 schedule? Was this or that? You watched the freaking game, your answer. This was an elite defense. David Bailey and that defense did everything they could. Oregon was 4 of 8 on fourth down in this game. 4 of 8. You hold an opponent to 50% on that many fourth downs, you would think your offense scored a lot of points to get it done. The passing game just was never there. Offensive drives for Texas Tech. Punt, punt, interception, missed field goal, fumble, punt, punt, fumble, turnover on downs, interception, turnover on downs, turnover on downs, end of game. I mean, you got to get some, and I think like two, three of those drives ended up with like double digit plays. Like, besides that, the rest of them, they were done in like less than 10 plays. So that defense was literally getting a quick sip of water. Nope, got to go back out there. Sat down, quick sip of water, got to go back out there. And at that point, I said the dam was just going to break eventually, and it did. Um, Again, it was what really helped Oregon, average starting field position. Oregon's average starting field position in this game, Austin, the 50-yard line. Texas Tech, their own 22-yard line. I mean, there's you a difference in the game right there. And Oregon got pressure on him with multiple sacks and forced 4 turnovers. Man, oh man. I mean, it was dominating performance for Oregon defensively and on the offensive side. They really didn't look like they were all the way in it, but they really didn't have to be because Texas Tech's offense really struggled the whole way, and that sucks for them. But what a season it was. I tell you what, they keep on spending that money the right way. We're going to see them back here and probably bring an offense next time. I feel pretty confident in that. But Oregon on its way to semis. Give them credit. Great win here.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and bring this up as a point of discussion now, even though we've got one more of these teams that fits into this category to talk about a little bit later. But like I talked about earlier, it feels as though there might be a lean towards a shift in the current college football playoff
Yeah.
structure. We're talking about a teams with a bye are now 1-7 uh,
Yeah.
in these quarterfinal games. I've had one team seated in the top four advance, and I don't think it's entirely to do with momentum for some of these teams. But look, you think about it, we've got teams that are legitimately not playing for what every college football team is already not playing for a month.
Right.
And now you throw on four of these teams don't play for a month and a week, and the opponent they just played is coming off of a really high energy, really momentum building victory as they move one step closer to a national championship. They have all this momentum. They start to get into a groove. They click. If you're a team like Ole Miss, like we saw, and we'll talk about a little bit later, um, you know, they come in with this just full head of steam and a regular season rematch. You get to learn about what you did last week or last time and try it again and kind of game plan a little bit better. Not that Georgia didn't also have an opportunity, but they also won the game. Um, the biggest thing to me is that if you're Georgia, who we'll talk about here in a little bit, if you're Ohio, not Ohio State, if you're Texas Tech, um, if you're Oregon from last year,
Hmm.
they've kind of seen both sides of the coin now.
Georgia from last year too. I mean, Georgia
Yeah,
2 years in a row.
that's what I'm saying with Georgia. 2 years in a row now in the Sugar Bowl. You're seeing Oregon, Big Ten champs last year, don't get it done. They don't play in the Big Ten championship at all. And look, now they're headed on to the semifinals. To me, it's just the system's kind of broken. And Dan Lanning had a great point. I think
Yes.
he's a guy we should listen to above a
Yes.
lot of people. He's been on the same. He's been on both sides of this kind of situation. Playoff games should be being played the entire month of December, and he's
Absolutely.
absolutely right. Um, he said, that may lead to that's going to have to lead to a little bit of expansion, and maybe rework the way we do conference championships and stuff. But he's right. It's
I mean,
too long of a layoff, and teams are getting momentum. And if I'm the SEC champion, or if I'm the Big Ten champion, I know Indiana did win their game, which we're just about to talk about. If I'm one of these power conference champions, I don't want to be sitting on my hands when clearly in the first 2 years, that's given me no advantage. With the current structure, a bye week is at a disadvantage.
yeah.
I think, I know we talked about, the way constant expansion, constant changing, it, could be bad for the sport. When do we draw the line? But I think with this kind of expansion and this kind of change, it's justified in the stats.
I mean,
I
yeah,
just don't
I think so.
I just don't know why you'd want to be the SEC champ, which has been Georgia 2 years in a row, play in the Sugar Bowl and go ahead and sign, the end of your season. This is where my season ends in the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah.
I don't think Kirby Smart wants to have another bye. I'm going to be honest. I think if you ask Kirby Smart, he'd rather have a first round game than a bye right now.
I mean, and I got a great point. I was talking with some people about this. They're like, "Well, the NFL has buys. Why is it different for them? You want to know why? Final week of the regular season happens. 1 week later is the start of the playoffs. We don't got this extra week in between to start. So it's essentially they get 1 week off, which is
Yeah, they get
that's
one
nothing.
week.
That's literally a bye week for some of these teams, which is fine. Like if you want to do the buys, I think that's fair. But like you said, there's got to be games like Dan Lanning said. I loved everything he said. Season starting 1 week earlier, absolutely. Games every Saturday in December would work out for everyone. National championship on New Year's Day, heck yes. And then the transfer portal opening up right after. I mean, pardon, did he just fix the sport right there? I mean, it's kind of sounds like he might have just fixed the sport right there.
Yes.
He might have
Yes.
just all four things. I'm like, yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely. Because obviously the thing we'll dive into next week whenever we have a lot more discussion about it. Second, Ole Miss and Georgia ended. You know what I saw on Twitter? Not about what a win for Ole Miss, what a win for Georgia was. Hey, transfer portal's open now. Go. It's like, well, they just won the Sugar Bowl. Like, can you give them a break here? Like, gee, it's so. I think it's absolutely fair. And the way it is, if they're going to expand this anymore, again, I've already stated my opinion on it. But if they're going to go to 16 teams, I agree. I think it would work out with the way. And to me, as fortunate as it is, and I'm going to say it, and I think it really hurts me to say this. If you want to go to 16 or more, I kind of think you got to get rid of conference championship weekend. As much as that pains me to say, as and that if we're going to go with the more expansion, then I really don't know conference championships wise how we do that because if they just get the 1 week off, see to me the way they could do it is the conference championships happen and then the bye week happens. They play the first round games the week after the conference championships, and then they play those next round games with those teams getting the bye. That's how they could do it if it's the bye week. But if it keeps on being 3 weeks, sometimes even more than 3 weeks, it's just That's not a normal thing in a season. Teams are not going to have just 3 weeks of not playing football happen unless it's the end of the year. 1 week is a entirely different thing here. So, like I said, yeah, I'm pretty confident Dan Lanning might have just figured out what we need to do with the sport to save it. So
Yes,
shout out Dan Lanning.
just too much time off. And I like that Dan Lanning kind of came, not directly, but kind of came to the defense of some of these group of five teams. He said, you want to make the college football playoff, win your football games. And I think that's absolutely huge and important. Um, I think we've got to get a better system. Look, I don't want to spread conspiracy theories, so I won't. But we've got to get rid of a committee made up of power for
Yes.
ADs and general managers. That has to go. Hey, what's this completely fair? Like a room full of completely biased individuals who whose earnings, their university's
Mhm.
earnings, their transfer portal, their recruitment, their conference's well-beings, all that stuff hinges on the decisions that they make. Um, who's to say that any of their decisions may or may not be corrupted? Miami making the playoff.
Yeah, so, I
Uh,
mean, I think it's fair. And again, I'll say what I said whenever we were discussing it after the selection happened. Again, bring back the BCS system. I think the BCS
Agreed.
system is how it could be
Bring the
done.
computers back.
Now, again, they use the AP poll and other things like that. So I think if you go back to the BCS system, you need to do a reset of who gets the vote for the AP poll and all these polls. Like I think that if you're
I
going to
agree.
do that, you need to take away everyone's AP voting justification and be like, we're going to redo all this. And if you're not going to watch the games week in and week out, you don't get a vote. I just think that's really how they got to do it if they want to go that. But if they want to stick with the committee, I mean, like I said, and the thing that really ticks me off, Austin, is they're like rule where they're like, well, when we're discussing their team, they leave the room. So you mean to tell me this person you've been working with on these playoffs the whole time doesn't have any impact on who you're picking there? That's a bunch of bull crap.
And an important part when they're mentioning your team. Yeah,
Yeah.
but what about all the ACC guys that sat in the room while we discussed whether Miami or Notre Dame should get in? I've said it. I'm done. I'm past the Miami Notre Dame discourse because I think if the basis of it is Miami won the game, Notre Dame didn't, I think that's a fair justification. Winning games is important. Why do we play the games if it doesn't matter?
Mm.
But why Alabama didn't move, why this wasn't a decision between Alabama and Miami, baffles me. And again, it's clear whether anybody's going to admit it or not that the ACC felt they needed. Everybody felt the ACC needed to get a team into the college football playoff.
Yeah, and you
Um,
talked about it with Alabama, and you're like, how did Bama get in? It's not like anyone in charge was athletic director for an SEC school or something. But
yeah,
I
me
mean
too.
that could be anything. Could be anything there.
The guy who's the chair only happens to gain anything from, I don't know, three SEC schools making the college football playoff. Like he doesn't have anything to gain from that, surely.
I mean,
Um,
I mean,
even if
like,
only
like
one of them actually wins the
again, like
game.
I think there's a way to do a committee the right way, but you got to get these people out of here with these biases and working at the universities, like because I still think back
How
to
is a
whenever they.
committee,
You go ahead. You go ahead.
like, not to interrupt you,
No,
but
you're.
like you're saying, how is a committee not made up of former players, former coaches, and former ADs? How is it? How do we not have like Nick Saban, Mac Brown, get some Heisman winners in there? Throw a guy like Robert Griffin III in there. Andrew Luck. Well, I guess
Yeah.
he represents a university
Yeah.
now. But how do we not have like? There's clearly got to be
Yeah.
guys that we could have. Pete Carroll, hey, he's not doing anything anymore.
Yep.
What? Why? Pete Carroll's seen it all. Why can we not have? You're telling me there are
Yeah.
guys with too much to do that don't have anything to do anymore? Yeah, and I'm tired of the affiliation with ESPN. Like
You,
EF,
you and everybody, you and everybody. I'm
ES,
with you there.
ESPN doesn't have a vested interest. Oh, they only have SEC and ACC rights.
They
That doesn't.
literally make the massive deal, and got rid of all their other affiliations, said, yes, we want the SEC. We are the ones who are the only ones that get the SEC, not anybody else. It's us. You're telling me that, Lord, guys, know, and that goes back to the whole Florida State debacle like 2 years ago with Florida State and Alabama. You mean to tell me there's no say whatsoever in that? And I get the whole Florida State situation, all that, but you can't sit there and just be like, huh, Florida State getting kicked out by an SEC team for a playoff on a network that just got a big deal for SEC football games. Ah, it could be nothing. I don't know. I mean, like,
Yeah.
so like I said, it can't be anyone that's working at universities now. Like the fact that that's a thing is ridiculous. Like that is ultimately like one of the more ridiculous things I've ever seen. Like, why have an
It's
active
corrupt.
AD at a Power Four school have a say in what the playoff looks like whenever it's featuring teams in their conference or teams that maybe not only that, ADs that they like, people at the schools in the conference that they like working with. They might choose those schools because of them. I mean, that's just a factual
True.
statement.
I completely agree with you. I think it's crazy and it's wild that I think just it's wild to me that the committee idea that anybody ever signed off on, hey, let's put the ADs in the biggest conferences and the biggest programs in a room and see who they pick. Surely there will be no controversy. We just sat down and thought they would honor Scouts honor. I won't think about my conference
That's about
affiliation
as good as what that Big Ten. You remember what was that deal? The Big Ten and was it the Big Ten ACC and someone that made like the
in the Big 12. Yeah.
gentleman's agreement or something like that? Like that's essentially what this. And then the Big Ten just dips and steals players from the Pac-12. So it's like what are we talking about?
Yeah, after Texas and Oklahoma, the Big 12, ACC, and Big 10 all were
Yeah,
like, hey, we won't try to poach anybody from each other. We won't bother the Pac 12. We won't bother anybody. We'll stay firm. And then the Big 10 said, actually, now that you guys aren't going to do it, we're going to take a bunch of guys from the Pac 12 and you're just going to have to deal with it.
oh, we're also going to take 4 of your schools. Yeah, tough crap. Deal with it. But we had a gentleman's.
Yeah.
It's like really, I didn't. There, and I love when they're like, yeah, there's no paper signed or anything. This is just an agreement. I'm like, this is going to blow up, and that's essentially what it is here. They all get in the rooms like, hey, no biases, okay? We can't have
Yeah.
any biases here. And they're like,
No
okay,
biases.
I'm gonna have
But the first thing
biases. That's exactly what it
Yeah,
is.
it's no biases, but the first thing I'd like to discuss is what kind of impact the college football playoff could have on the ACC if they don't get a single representative in the college football playoff. And then we'll go from now we'll just start to decide what might happen. And the thing is, to me, you would think that this would be an opportunity for for a conference like the SEC or even the Big 12 or the Big 10 for that matter, since regions don't really matter
Yeah,
anymore, to be like, oh, hey, this could really hurt the ACC, and Clemson and Florida State might be looking for a new home. Duke might be looking for a new home. Yeah, basketball wise would be a
right,
great get for
right.
somebody.
Yep,
Uh, but it's this God complex, this elitism in college football where like, well, sure, I'd like to have Clemson, but I'd much rather the ACC exist than the American Conference get a team in the college football playoff, or the Sun Belt get a team in the college football playoff, or the Mountain West even. It's this I don't know. It's this God complex that these universities have all of the sudden. Well, it's not all of the sudden, but now it's being amplified by the fact that they get to decide who goes to the college football and they get to decide the criteria. I think that's the thing I'm most worried about with this upcoming offseason is these guys are going to sit down in a room and decide, our conferences and a lot of our ADs and general managers and the network that happens to represent the college football playoff are calling for the elimination of the group of five teams being able to play. So what are we going to do? What are we going to,
could be
real
any
head
option. Could
scratcher.
be any option. Yeah.
Our conferences and our network really want us to get rid of all these teams, but not think about that. Let's not think about the stakes that my job or my university's place might have in the conference in the future. And let's just think about the fact that completely unbiased, what's the fair thing to do? Well, we know what the fair thing to do is But is Hunter Yurchek going to have a job at the University of Arkansas, or is Arkansas gonna have a spot in the SEC if maybe they decide, oh, we're not going to add any more college football playoff spots for the SEC, or we're not going to get rid of the group of five so that the SEC can have more spots? You're telling me he's not thinking about that at all? And what great? Yeah, I mean, listen to the nonsense that the commissioner of the SEC has been spreading over the last week. We deserve four teams. Brother, your teams can't even win multiple games. Ole Miss is the only four teams in the college football playoff, and there's only one left.
Yeah.
I,
We could go on here for another hour in all
I
honesty
know.
about this. I mean, we could go on truly forever, but I mean, look, we're gonna see again January 23rd. They're supposed to meet, and we're gonna find out what the future holds there, and we'll see where we go from there. I mean,
Yeah, it's a lot of hope. But look, the expansion, I would go ahead and say brace yourself, or at
yep.
least a change to the structure somewhat, because clearly the buys
I will just
aren't.
tell you this: if it doesn't go to 16 teams, I will be genuinely shocked. Like if this isn't announced that next year we're going to 16 teams, I'll be like, what? And it's
I
like,
agree.
I, just, I don't
With
know.
you, like with what you said, the easiest two solutions are go to 8 teams or go to 16 teams. Here's the problem. You chose to go to 12, and you already have teams fighting to get in and controversies as it is. It makes your job a lot harder as a committee to go down to 8. Even if you cut out group of 5 teams, that only, opens up theoretically that only opens up one spot. Or if you have an issue like you did this year, that only opens up 2 spots.
All right.
Uh, to not to so what you're opening up two, but you're losing four total. So really, you're only adding 2 spots for Power Four teams. That doesn't really solve your whole like debate issue. I think the easiest and most logical conclusion is to just add four more teams to the
Yeah.
playoff. Uh, so yeah, I'm with you. I'll be surprised. But let's talk about Alabama, Indiana, and an
Woo!
absolute beatdown on Alabama's end. Indiana gets the job done, and for the SEC doing all this crying and complaining that they need more teams.
Mm,
Talk about 2 years in
mm,
this 12-team playoff structure.
mm.
No teams in the national championship last year. Um, and now, unless Ole Miss beats Miami, you're on that same fate. But let's look at the SEC's record in the 12-team playoff. I don't have it pulled up, obviously, but it's not good. A lot more losses than wins, and sure, they've had a lot more teams in, but it's not great.
Mm-mm. No, it's no,
Uh,
it's
and
not.
and and this was not a great look either. Look, the debate basically came down to Notre Dame, Miami, uh, or Alabama. Alabama didn't have such a clean showing against Indiana
No.
um, in this one, and I a little bit unfortunate because 3-loss team gets in. You say, oh, it's an SEC school. Oh, this, that, the other. They did not execute like they were expected to in this game against the Big Ten champion. And look, I think, part of it could be you could say, well, Indiana could just be that good. And I'm with you. I think Indiana is
Yeah.
that good. But I think a lot of teams could have played Indiana better uh, than Alabama did in this game.
Yeah, let's just say it like it is. They beat their butts like it was nothing. It felt like you thought it felt like I was watching Indiana and Illinois again. Sorry to bring that up. I
No,
didn't
no, you're absolutely right. It was not a
it
close game. This was a beatdown.
I mean it was. Alabama held to 193 total yards. This is Alabama's first 35 plus point loss since 1998. I mean, it's
Oof.
been forever for this. Like I said, it wasn't even a game. Again, Fernando Mendoza really didn't have to do that much. I think the dude only threw like 15,
16
16
passes?
passes on the day. He was 14 to 16 for 192 yards, 3 touchdowns. Guess what? He didn't need to. 200 yards on the ground. Like I said, yeah, you could try to slow down Fernando Mendoza. What's in your way? Oh, just a top 10 rushing offense. That's all it is. They just ran through Bama. There was nothing Bama could do. Literally, the only reason they stopped Indiana from scoring a touchdown early in the game was because Fernando Mendoza's communication was out in his helmet. That's literally the only reason this isn't a 42-3 final. I mean, and for Bama again, this was just a rough show, and it wasn't even close. This is without Indiana's best defensive player, who's out for the rest of the year, by the way. Let's just factor that in as well. And again,
Oh,
I'm not going to sit here and act like Kalen DeBoer's job's on the line, but knowing how ridiculous the expectations are at Bama, and you got fans at Bama who were talking about last year the way it ended, and now you limp to the finish line again and get blown out in the playoff. Look, pure and simple as this: they have to get a ground game next year. If Bama does not get a running game going next year, this exact same thing's going to happen. It might be even worse next year, depending on who's at quarterback, what players you bring in the portal. But if you do not have a ground game, you will not have success. And we saw that in this game, and we saw it with how bad Indiana just ran straight through Bama in the Rose Bowl.
yeah. Look, Alabama teams for centuries, it feels like, have been built on the back of a solid run game.
Mm-hmm.
Look, even at the end of Saban's tenure, sure, did he start to produce some, Heisman contending quarterbacks? Sure. But guess who was always in the backfield? Najee Harris, Derrick Henry, um,
Damian Harris, one of the more underrated
Damian
running backs. Yeah.
Harris. Yeah, Damian Harris is just who I was trying to think of. Brandon Bolden,
Mm-hmm.
right? Was it Brandon Bolden?
I I want to
Maybe
say
someone else.
yes. I don't know off the top of my head. I don't remember off the top of my head.
But like solid running backs, and it's something I think Georgia's kind of getting away from too. No disrespect to Frazier, he had a pretty good performance. We'll talk about here in a moment, but it feels like these programs don't have these big explosive running back names like we're used to. And yeah, we're starting to see that kind of as a side effect, slowing down how effective these passers are at Alabama. But our final bowl game to talk about. Sugar Bowl in New Orleans,
Woo!
Ole Miss versus Georgia, and this was a bowl game. It was absolutely rightfully picked for the nightcap.
Mm-hmm.
It was a perfect game, an awesome quarterback battle. And look, these two teams battled back and forth, but Ole Miss able to come out on top 39-34. But look, Gunnar Stockton earned my respect in this game. He played out of his mind. So did Trinidad Chambliss, but you already knew I was a big Trinidad Chambliss
Yeah,
fan.
I was about to
If
say.
you've been listening to the show for any length of time, as well as Kawan Lacey had an awesome game. So this is a great game for me and the guys I'm cheering for in this game. But with Georgia losing to Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl last year, I didn't feel good about the way this team looked. And obviously they came out and kind of proved me wrong, went 12-2 now that their season's completely over. Uh, but I've got a lot more confidence in this team coming into
Mhm.
next year. I know this isn't the result they wanted, but they played close, they played tough. But Gunnar Stockton, uh, as long as he comes back for another season, which haven't seen any indicators that he
No,
won't.
no.
Uh, but he really, I think, found himself to close out the season, played phenomenally in this game. And now I think Georgia looks really, really exciting. And I know two SEC championships in a row. You think, well, of course they look good, but I just think they've really found a rhythm with Gunnar Stockton. Uh, and they've got a lot of momentum to build off of, especially if a change in the college football playoff structure does occur. I think could benefit Georgia more than a lot of teams. This is a team we've seen lose twice in the Sugar Bowl after winning the SEC. So I think they'd like to see a change to that structure.
Yeah, I think they would. But again, this was just a phenomenal game. And Austin, let's think about it. From the first matchup, what cost Ole Miss the game? Easily the fourth quarter. Struggled in the fourth quarter to finish the game out. What won Ole Miss the game this time? Outscoring Georgia 20-10 in the fourth quarter. They scored on 4 of their final 5 drives. And Austin, what did we say word for word was the wild card entering this game? What did we say word for word?
Defense.
Defense in the game, and the defense got its stops. But not just that. Trinidad Chambliss playing the best football of his career. We both believed in that. We both said if that happens, then anything can happen in this game. And Trinidad Chambliss, my gosh, dude, like I thought his performances were great in the regular season. This is one of the all-time best performances I've seen in the playoff. I mean, I see the stat. I have like stats put in front of me. And it's like 0 sacks, and I'm like, that wasn't because the Ole Miss offensive line was doing a great job. Really, let's just say like it is. That was not the case.
Yeah.
Trinidad was running for his life, making the best throws of the year, making some phenomenal plays. I think it was a season high in passing yards for him, something like that. And man, oh man, I mean, he was just incredible. Keyone Lacey had 100 yards rushing. They got to 100 yards rushing. That was a big thing in the game. But you talked about the defense, Austin. Georgia was held to 3.4 yards per attempt. That's their second worst this season. So, I mean, there were major differences from that first matchup from this one. Fact of the matter at the end, though, was I think Georgia cost itself the game very late in the quarter. And I mean, we were texting each other near the very end of this game. I remember like it was. It was 34-31. Georgia was getting the ball. Georgia was driving. They were inside Ole Miss territory. They were third and goal from the 6. A minute 4 left. And I don't know. It was no timeouts left for Ole Miss, I think. Something like that. One timeout, no timeouts left. And they
Yeah.
decide to throw the football, and it's incomplete. So now you're leaving Ole Miss a full minute just to go get in field goal range for a kicker, which shout out to him. He was another big factor in the game for Ole Miss, the kicking. To get in that field goal range, that's nothing. I think if you run the ball there on third and goal, you run the clock down like 20, 30, 25 seconds left the game. You kick the field goal 34-34, you go to overtime, it's a brand new ball game. But instead, you make that mistake there. You give Ole Miss enough time to go down the field and and get the game winning field goal. And then can we just talk about what the heck was that fiasco from
I
the
I
kickoff
was
to the rest of it? I mean, like, my gosh, the
I was
stage
just
it was
about to
on the
say
field twice. Confetti was on the field. The Gatorade bath was already there. I mean, it was ridiculous.
this would not be the Bold Take podcast if I didn't sit here and break down what happened. My goodness. If you were Lacey, I was kind of stressing her out, but she was also being stressed out by the decision making. But I was like actually up, pacing back and forth. I'm not a Georgia fan. I'm not an Ole Miss fan, but the way this game was being
Yeah.
mismanaged by both sides was
Mhm.
actually stressing me out. This
Yes.
game should have just been over,
Hmm.
and it wasn't. But you have the kickoff down 37-34. What's going to happen? Georgia and their special teams coordinator. Why did Kirby Smart approve this decision? And I kind of get it because you're kind of catching them off guard. Um, but I just don't. I'd rather take my touchback and run one play,
Yeah.
and try and get at least a chunk of the yards through the air. And again, to me, with 7 seconds left, you could do a quick 10-yard throw to the sideline and then set up for your hook and ladder, your pitchy woo woo, your Hail Mary, whatever you're gonna do, or at least try it. I just didn't love the lateral. Then the lateral goes out of bounds, and so immediately I'm like, there's 1 second, whether there's a safety or not, this ball hits out of bounds in one
Yeah.
second. They're bringing the stage onto the field, and I'll say this much. I know they have to be ready to go in an instant, but the officiating crew does nothing to stop anybody from running onto the
No.
field. They just
No.
don't. They just decide they're going to huddle up. Don't stop anybody before you huddle up. Just huddle up and make a decision and then get everybody off the field, which I think takes substantially longer than stopping people from getting on the field and then huddling up. The stage comes out, they put it back on. I get they have to be there quick, whatever. Then we come out. Rule it's a safety after, I don't know, it felt like 20 minutes.
Hmm.
We have a safety, have to kick it off. I am dumbfounded. I did not think that you could onside kick a safe kickoff. I thought that you had to punt it.
Right.
I guess maybe I'm wrong, or maybe the officials just were like
Like
everything was
whatever,
happening.
like
Yeah,
whatever.
it's just like that. I think that's probably what happened. I think it was. I haven't looked up the rule because I was always so confident that you could not onside kick a safety. Playing Madden or College Football 25, I've never
Yeah,
been lucky.
where's that option in
Yeah,
Madden or College Football 25? Where's that option to onside say on onside on that. Like, come on.
Yeah. So they come. I think it honestly just happened. Georgia came. Kirby's like, let's just try it. Because I mean, otherwise we're
Yeah.
just surrendering.
Hmm.
Um, and look, my only critique of Ole Miss and Pete Golding in this game, and whoever the special teams coordinator is, learn the clock rules of the
Yes.
game,
Just
please.
touch it. All you had to do was
So
touch it.
I know. So Georgia comes out in an onside kick. The officials do nothing to stop it.
No.
Ole Miss, credit to them, they lined up in an onside defense. I guess they also just thought you could. Knowing what I know now about Pete Golding and how special teams and clock management works, I'm sure he had no idea that whether they could or not. Um, so they come out, line up for this onside kick, and I'm like, so the whole time that they're getting lined up, I'm like, you can't do this. You can't line up for an onside kick. I'm like, whatever. I'm like, okay, so all Ole Miss has to do is touch the football, and the game is over because
Right.
the clock will start, and you can't advance an onside kick. So if you touch it, the clock starts, and even if you let Georgia get it after that, they can't run it for an 80-yard touchdown. So it
Mhm.
doesn't matter. But I guess Pete Golding thought that on the kick, the clock starts. So he just told his team to get away from the ball. So the ball bounces like 20 yards and Georgia recovers it. And so then they start running on the field again, and I'm like, no,
No,
no.
no,
And
no.
this is where I fault the stage crew. You
Yes.
have to know you cannot come on the field in that situation. You have to, and even if you don't know the rules, you have to think, hey, we got fooled once. Let's get a thumbs up from somebody before we just rush this
Right.
giant stage onto the field. Pete Golding is dumbfounded. He's like, what are you talking about? Buddy, nobody touched the ball. So then I was like, part of me would almost like to see Georgia win this game,
Right.
just
Right.
because like it's mismanagement to the highest degree. But at the same time, I'm rooting for Trinidad Chambliss. I'm rooting for Kawan Lacey. And so then we have a hook and ladder play that or a pitchy pitchy woo woo going on way too long. And it reminded me of the that Miami kickoff against Duke.
Yes.
It like
Yes.
they're going backwards and backwards and backwards, and then finally somebody falls down, and that's all it takes. And that's all it takes on one of these plays
Yeah.
is either somebody falls down or an
You
offensive
take
player.
one wrong step as a defender. You take
Yeah,
one wrong step, and then it could lead to that happening. So
these plays are decided by either an offensive player making a bad throw or dropping the ball, or by a defender falling down or taking a bad angle.
hmm.
And so that's all I'm thinking as they're going backwards and backwards. I'm like, yeah, they're not making any ground. Uh, but because I'm like, oh no, oh no, oh no. And Lacey's like, well, what are you talking about? Because they're just going backwards. I was like, yeah, but literally all it takes is one person to
One.
fall down,
One.
one bad move, and a guy, a wide receiver sprinting down the side, a 4-4 or like a four
I mean,
three
wait, have y'all
guy.
not seen how fast Zachariah Branch is?
Yeah.
He gets the ball in his hands in any wrong angle from anybody, he's gone.
Well, yeah, all it takes is a bad step and it's over. And then finally, you can breathe a sigh of relief after what felt like an hour. There's a illegal block in the back, so no matter what happens, the
Yeah.
game will end after this play, and a touchdown will not count. Um, but it was just, I think, by both sides, honestly, until the last play, because the last play, both sides did their job
Yeah.
for as much as they could do. But leading up to that pitchy pitchy woo woo at the
Oh
end of
my
the
God.
game, it was just mismanagement and poor decision making to the highest degree, at least in my eyes.
I mean, to tell you how bad it was, my mom was like sitting there with me watching it. She was like even getting angry at it. She's like, just end the game, guys. It's not that hard. And like I was like, she's getting tired of this. Like, come on.
Yeah, I if it wasn't a college football playoff game such high stakes, it's like that peak college football tomfoolery that you don't get in the NFL.
Right, right.
Because guys, you have a guy on the coaching staff who's like studied up on every rule in the entire book. So you don't have the mishap on the onside kick. Um, and the guys are veterans; they've been playing the game for a long time. So, they don't make all these goofy plays. Like the just completely inaccurate lateral on the kickoff. Heads up play by Ole Miss to absolutely smoke the other guy because that's
Yeah.
legal.
Yep.
And you can't catch the ball if you're laying, face down on the turf because I just put you in the ground. So that was a heads up play, and one person on the field knew what they were doing. So hats off to that Ole Miss defender who just absolutely smoked him
Yeah.
because he knew what to do.
I mean,
But
I
yeah,
mean,
with
Austin, let's
such
say it like
high
it is.
stakes in the game,
Yeah. I mean, the stakes in the game are but let's say like it is, Austin. What a Final Four we have here. You got two teams never won a national
no kidding.
championship. You got Ole Miss, who I got talked to by Ole Miss people on Twitter about this. They technically won a national championship last in 1960. And I was like, okay, so you've never actually won one. Got it. And then
Yeah.
that kind of ticked them off. And then you got Miami. The last one was 2001. So like no matter how these semifinal games play out, we're getting a historic champion this year. So I mean, it's a phenomenal Final Four. You gotta love it. You gotta love it.
Since teams have really been winning national championships, none of these teams have really won a national championship.
Exactly. Exactly.
Um, so, as far as, and what I mean by that is actually having a national championship game.
Right. I mean, the last
We've
one
got
was
some examples.
Miami 2001, but like 2001, I mean, come on. Year I was born. I mean, like year.
We're, and also, were we playing national championships in 2001? Were
Yeah,
we playing the BCS
they
national
that was
championship?
like the third year of the BCS because remember the BCS
Okay.
came into that, so it was like the very early stages of
So
the
we have
BCS.
one championship since we've been playing championship games in college football
Yes,
between
one.
all of these teams.
Yeah,
And it's no offense to Ole Miss, in my opinion. I just don't think I think it's so hard for me to legitimize any team that claims a national championship before we play
well, I
national
mean, and you
championship.
got like what Auburn? Didn't Auburn this past summer just be like, "Hey, we have like six more national championships now.
Well,
just wanna
yeah,
point that out. Just want to point that
the
out."
issue is like for a long time it was just unregulated, and like we've seen this even in the early 2000s, but the AP poll is not bold enough to do it anymore,
Yeah,
which I'm glad because it'd be wrong and they'd be embarrassed by it. But even I think it's 2003 is the last time they did it where a national championship game was played and
right.
the AP poll picked somebody else as the
Yeah, it
national
was
champion.
USC and LSU, I think, that year. So yeah, they
Yeah.
split it that year, which was
Um,
ridiculous.
and so, but like back in 1957, there was like four different outlets. And so you could have four different national champions because it'd be like Alabama Republican, Gazette or whatever is like, oh, the Crimson Tide have won the national championship. But then like the AP poll is like, well, no, because they were 5-7. The team that actually won the national championship was Florida State.
Right, yeah.
And then we just have this, and there are legitimately years I've looked it up because I saw the 2003 when I was like, well, how do we have two teams that win it in 2003? And so then I went on this long rabbit hole of every time and there are for real years where like seven teams are claiming a national championship
Yep.
because some little small or not actually tiny, like it's not like a local newspaper, but it's like small in the national scale of newspaper or like writers associations is like, oh yeah, I think that Oklahoma State won the national champion. I think they were the best team in college football this year. And it's like, okay, and the university's like, hey, they said we're national championships, hang up the batter. There's no game to prove who's the national champion.
Yeah.
So they just claimed it. So I mean, bring that back, please. If the Arkansas Democrat Gazette would like to start, doing that, that would be fun.
I mean,
Uh,
the national champion, if that's the case, the national champion this year would have been like Arkansas State for Arkansas. But
if
you're national
actually,
champion, the Red Bulls of Arkansas State. That's how it would
yeah,
have
if you
gone,
talk about
man.
the Division One team that had the most success in the state of Arkansas,
Oh boy.
sadly, well, not sadly for me, go Red Wolves.
Right, right, right. Yeah.
But yeah, it'd be Arkansas State. So yeah, but let's bring that back maybe. That'd be a way to stick it to the college football playoff committee is if we started naming teams not in the college football playoff committee national champ.
Yeah.
But let's get into our game picks finally because in literal 1 minute of real time, who
Oh
knows when
wow,
the
yeah.
actually kick off. But Illinois State and Montana State will play for what the FCS National Championship in Nashville, Tennessee. Uh, who do you got between are they the Cardinal or are they the Redbirds? What are they?
They're so I
Uh,
think yeah, they're the Redbirds. They're the Redbirds.
Redbirds
And then
and the
Montana State's the
Bobcats.
Bobcats. So yeah, Illinois State's a fun one because they went on this like Cinderella run the entire postseason. The upset of North Dakota State, then beating UC Davis, then beating Villanova. I mean, they were not even ranked as a national seed in the FCS playoffs. Huh, crazy how that works out that it's not the top teams from the powers that are making it. Crazy. And then got Montana State, who is one of those juggernauts that did really good. So I'm going to lean Montana State, but Illinois State surprise teams all playoff long in the FCS. It wouldn't surprise me if they pulled off one more.
I'm going to go with my Illinois pride. I'm going to go with my support uh, of the underdog, the Cinderella story. Give me the Redbirds to win it. They're 10.5 point underdogs as we're nearing in on
Yeah,
kickoff.
I was about to say kickoff is
That
literally, I think, about to happen. So, hey, I
so
want it to be known we got our picks in before kickoff. We want that to be known.
yeah, before kickoff, it's in. You won't see this before the result is settled, most likely, but we got it in, and that's all that matters. Also, why would we not pick the winner if we got it in after the fact?
Of
That's all I'm gonna
course.
say.
That'd be a lot smarter. I mean, I tell you what, it'd make our pick records look a heck of a lot better. I tell you
Yeah,
what.
trust me, if we were rigging the system, I'd be doing it in a whole lot of a different
We
way.
would
I would
be
not be.
undefeated head to head entering the national championship. Let's just say it like it is.
Yeah, agree. But let's go to the semifinal college football playoff games, which will be played on Thursday and Friday, respectively. Let's start on a Thursday game in the Fiesta Bowl in Glendale, Arizona. We've got number 10 Miami Hurricanes facing off against the number 6 Ole Miss Rebels. What do you like? Who do you like in this game? Where do you think it's going to go?
Well, I'll tell you what I do like, and I'll tell you I like Miami's pass rushing. Going against this quarterback play from Ole Miss, if Trinidad Chambliss has any sort of performance like he did against Georgia, against this Miami pass rush, give the man the first overall pick. I'm sorry, Fernando. Give this man the number one pick in the NFL draft, and Steelers trade up to the number one pick, please. So yeah, again, this Miami defense is so good. Again, similar to the Georgia game, Austin. They're playing. Ole Miss is playing a really good run defense that can shut them down. Can Ole Miss have success running the football? If they can, they got a very good chance to win this game. And like I said, you would need another performance like that from Trinidad Chambliss have really have a good chance against the Miami in this game. Because I'll be honest with you, Miami's going to be able to run the football against this Ole Miss defense. This Ole Miss run defense is not the best in the world. So Miami can run with Mark Fletcher in them. I feel pretty confident in that. So for that reason, I'm going to pick Miami to win and not just win. I think they win by 7+. I really think Miami handles business here.
I'm going to go against you on this one. I'm going to take the Ole Miss Rebels. I think they found their offensive rhythm. I think as far as offense is concerned, there's no worries about this team whatsoever. Trinidad Chambliss does not make mistakes. He
Mm-hmm.
does not get sacked. I think he's going to negate, for the most part, this solid pass rush. I'm not saying he won't get sacked at all in this game, but their pressure's not going to have the same kind of effect that it's had on Marcel Reed and that it had on Julian Sand. We've clearly seen his composure. We've seen his escapability in the pocket. He's going to make the big plays. I think Kawan Lacey has found his groove. He was banged up last week and he ran for 98 yards. Give him another week to recover, which they expect him to be ready, fully more closer to full health in this game. I expect the offense to surge. While the defense hasn't been great, Mark Fletcher will probably have another good game. He's been really good in this college football playoff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. Carson Beck has not had a good game in the college football playoff yet. He hasn't turned the ball over yet, but he's not throwing for big yards. His
Yeah.
completion percentage isn't terrible. It's better than it was to close out the regular season. But Carson Beck has been a non-factor. In this game, I think he's going to have to be a factor to compete with Trinidad Chambliss in this offense. I just don't know that ramping it up and all of a sudden having him throw the ball 35, 40 times is going to lead to instant success for this
Yeah.
offense. He may not turn the ball over in this game, but he's not going to outduel Trinidad Chambliss. I think in a shootout, Ole Miss is the team that's better suited for it. I like Ole Miss to advance to the national championship and keep line in Lane Kiffin's pockets. Um, Biggest fleece by Lane Kiffin. He gets all the
I was
same
about to
guarantees
say
he
he's
had at Ole
literally
Miss.
getting paid for just sitting back like this, watching, going, "Hey, I'm just gonna add a little bit more to my pocket here,"
Yeah, no kidding. I've seen people like, oh, Lane Kiffin was stupid for leaving Ole Miss. And while I agree, I don't
Right.
really know what else he can gain from at LSU that he wasn't getting
Yeah.
at Ole Miss, SEC program, and as of late, a more competitive program. But he's not a fool. He gets a pay raise and he gets all the guarantees he had as far as playoff success is concerned from this year's
Money.
contract.
Show me the
So
money.
he gets all that extra money. LSU's going to pay him for fun. I don't really know what they had to
They're just like,
gain from
we
that.
have money lying around.
Yeah.
Sure, we'll give you that, Lane. Sure. So
So I think
imagine if Ole Miss wins the national championship. They got to pay him the national championship.
I know.
That'd be funny. That'd be really funny.
I know. I think they gave him those guarantees thinking this will make him want to come, and Ole Miss will probably lose in the second round. And now they're very realistically having a look at a possibility where they
They're
pay
like,
out.
wait a minute. Okay, Lane, no more. Okay, no more. No more. Okay, we were
They're
being
about to be
generous.
reworking that about to be reworking that contract for the first year even starts. Um, let's take a look at the Peach Bowl now in Atlanta, Georgia. Rematch from the regular season. Number 5 Oregon takes on number 1 Indiana. Big clash for who goes to Miami. Who do you like in this game? Who do you think's going to win?
Well, just looking back on the regular season matchup between these two, a 30-20 Indiana win. This truly was the moment we all were like, "Oh yeah, Indiana definitely is going to be up there once again." And we saw in this game, they didn't trail after the first quarter. Oregon was held to only 81 yards rushing in this game. And Indiana got after Dante Moore, sacked him 6 times in this game, handled business, and really controlled it throughout most of the game. And again, that final score is a bit deceiving. It really felt like Indiana was in control this entire football
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
And looking at this matchup, look, literally the thing it comes down to, again, can similar to Ole Miss, can Oregon run the football against this Indiana defense? Alabama couldn't, but also I think Oregon's way more better at running the football here in this one. So I really don't know where to lean. In my pre-playoff prediction, I had this matchup and I leaned with Oregon, but that was before I saw Indiana in this freaking domination they had against Bama there. So it's close for me here, but I have a chance to get a playoff pick right, which I haven't had a lot of success with in this year. I'm going to assume they find a way to keep Dante Moore comfortable enough, and I'm going to lean with Oregon to win the game if they can run the football against Indiana. Key pieces on defensive line missing for Indiana could hurt them. But let me just say it, Austin. I am picking Oregon with zero confidence. I am picking them just so I can get maybe a chance at a national championship contender right here. That is solely what it is here. If I had to pick, I really consider Indiana. Also, we have our family bowl game picks, and if Oregon wins, I win second place. So kind of need it. Let's go Oregon, but I mean, this is a coin toss. This is going to be a great game on Friday night.
Yeah, it's going to be an awesome performance. Ziggy clearly has a little bit of thoughts to that. I don't know if you can hear that in the
Ziggy is
background.
fired up for that one.
It's extremely loud. Hey, can you stop that, please? He's respectful, at least. Um, but in this game, you've got a clash from the regular season. Look, the college football playoffs so far, of the games I can think of off the top of my head, regular season rematches right now are what, 2-1? At result of no 1-2. Sorry,
Yeah.
1-2 in favor of the teams that lost in the first matchup.
Right.
I guess I should say 2-1 from that perspective.
Right.
Alabama rematch against Oklahoma, they won. Ole Miss rematch against Georgia, they won. But Ole Miss's rematch against Tulane, Ole Miss won that game.
Right.
So that would be the 2-1 there in favor of the team that lost the regular season matchup, which would point toward Oregon. But look, with the
Yeah.
momentum that Indiana had coming in to this college football playoff, having the extended rest, they've already defied one statistic in this college football playoff that doesn't, help them at all.
That is
Uh,
true.
Teams not Indiana were 0-7 after a bye, and up to the Indiana game, teams were 0-6 having the bye. Um, so they've taken advantage of that. They've been stable, been consistent. I expect that consistency and that success to continue into this game. I think Oregon will play them closer. They found a rhythm with their run game, even though it's not big numbers in these last couple of games. It is the success that they're having when the run game hits. It hits big. It's been the big difference maker. It was the big difference maker last week. Dante Moore threw for big yard, but didn't throw any touchdowns in the game, and he actually turned the ball over.
Yeah.
I think they'll be a more confident, composed team, but I think Indiana still has that edge, still the better team, and I think they come out and they get the job done.
Hey,
So
can I
I've
just,
got
and I think I'm going to say this, and I think you can agree with me with this. The winner of this game, at least in my opinion, this might as well be the national championship because I think the winner of this game is going to be who's going to be our national champion. That's just my opinion, though. I don't know. I don't know about yours.
Yeah, I think on paper, you certainly look at these two teams, and they, again, on paper, look better than the other two. Of course, the big thing that helps Ole Miss and Miami is the momentum they found along the
Yep,
way in this college football playoff
obviously.
path. But I'd agree with you. On paper, it'd be hard not to take either Oregon or Indiana, no matter who they face in this national championship.
Absolutely.
Well, let's close it out by adding our uh, bets of the week here for these final few games as we get closer and closer to the national championship. What's your bet of the week this week?
Huh. I rolled with Miami plus 9.5 last week. Boy, did that work out. So you know what they say, Austin? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm going to take Miami minus 3.5 against Ole Miss. I think in the end of the day, I think they can win this game by more than 4 points. I'm not saying it'll be a blowout, but I think they'll be able to win by more than 3 points in this game.
That's crazy because my bet of the week is Ole Miss plus 3.5.
Yes, let's go head to head here. Let's go.
I think Ole Miss can win this game outright. I just we're just seeing it two different ways. You like Miami and what they bring. I like Ole Miss and what they bring. You think there's no way Miami doesn't win by more than 4. I think there's no way Ole Miss loses, let alone loses by 4.
You know, just
So
for
it'll
that,
be
it's
interesting.
gonna come down to a late extra point being missed or something. That's gonna like determine who
Yeah, no
covers the
kidding. This
spread
is going
here
to
in
be
this.
a sweat fest. Well, there you have it. For the first time this season on the Bull Tech podcast, maybe for the first time in the history
I
of
was
the
about to say
bet
I
of the
can't think
week,
of any off the top of my head. I
yeah,
can't think of any.
you cannot fade both of us. You
Yes.
have to if you're going to bet against one of us, you have to bet with the other one. Maybe steer clear of the Fiesta Bowl if your strategy is to fade us.
Maybe you
But
should just bet on Indiana and Oregon instead.
yeah,
Maybe you stay away from this one and we'll take the
we'll
punches for this one.
yeah, we'll take the beating on this one. Um, all you have to do is watch Oregon, Indiana, and put your money there. But with all that being said, that's going to do it for us here at the Bold Take Podcast. That's Austin
Hey,
Wader.
I'm
Oh,
sorry to cut you off.
no,
I
you're
tried to
good.
get in before that. Do not forget, ladies and gentlemen, we are recording it Wednesday night. NFL playoff preview coming at you.
Yep.
Hey, both our teams are in the playoffs. I don't want to talk about how stressful last night was, so I'm not going to talk about it. Both teams are in the playoffs. We're going to find out in an NFL season that's been about as unpredictable as college football is. We're going to make our picks for who we think is going to make a great playoff run in these wild card rounds. Going to be fun to talk about. Y'all do not want to miss it.
Absolutely. But with all that being said, that's Austin Wader. I'm Austin Hill. We want to thank you for listening.